Look, I get it. I totally, completely, absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, get it. And I've been a fan of this team for as long as some of you, in many of your cases, longer than you, and for some others, not quite as long. So I understand the desire, the eating, gnawing feeling that you have to finally get a quarterback that you can be proud of. A quarterback that you don't feel like you have to defend, justify, and excuse. A quarterback that you can brag about. A quarterback that you could thump your chest as a Bears fan and be proud of. A quarterback that you know can be the primary reason that the Chicago Bears could someday win a Super Bowl. You want this. Even more so, you need this. I'm there with you, believe me. I have a catalog of videos for years on here that are all about that, which is why you should subscribe, as I talk about this team like this. And when the opportunity comes, potentially, for a talent the likes of Deshaun Watson, it comes available potentially via trade, free agency, doesn't really matter. Of course, Chicago Bears fans are going to look at this and say, no matter what it takes, it's got to happen. It's like karma's giving us a chance for once. We passed on him in 2017, and now in 2021, we can complete the circle of life and we can make ourselves whole. And the Bears can have a real deal elite NFL starting quarterback and have him for a long time. A leader, a dual threat talent, like all these things the Bears have never had. Until you go back to the days of Sid freaking Luckman of all people. So you know Bears fans are giddy about this. And willing to drop trow and give up whatever the hell. Because admittedly, until the Bears get a real deal quarterback, nothing's going to matter. So again, I get it. And my thought here is not to go after Bears fans that want Deshaun Watson, that are willing to sell the farm to get Deshaun Watson. Because, like I said, I totally, completely, absolutely get it. However, many of these people are the same ones that for years defended Jay Cutler when I was trying to tell y'all basically from day one that this dude was doo-doo. But I want to flip the script here a little bit and ask the most pertinent question of all. Because we don't know whether the Houston Texans are going to trade Deshaun Watson this offseason or before the 2021 NFL season begins. We've seen the reports that Deshaun Watson has asked for a trade. We believe that he eventually may be traded, but there is no guarantee of that. We do not know what tomorrow holds. We just don't. We know that the Chicago Bears are desperate for help at the quarterback position. We know the Chicago Bears will be picking up the phone and calling, knocking on the door. Like, they will try to make a play here. I don't think anybody disputes that. Sure. But we also have to remember Deshaun Watson does have a no-trade clause. So in order for any trade to happen, he's ultimately got to sign off on it. He's ultimately got to approve of it. He's ultimately got to be willing to be traded to that destination. And I got to ask you, why would Deshaun Watson choose the Chicago Bears? Why would he? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Absolutely none. Not even just compared to the competition. Like, if you compare it to the competition of like the Jets, Dolphins, and maybe a couple of other teams. Just objectively, you look at just the Bears themselves, and you ask, why in the hell would he choose this location? Now, the fans are going to sit there and say, well, he would love the idea of being able to come into a big city like Chicago and be the guy and play for this historical franchise and be the best quarterback in the franchise's history. And imagine if he won a Super Bowl here and da-da-da-da-da. And all of that sounds good, but it's more like fan fiction than reality when you make that crap up in your head. It might be the hope that you need, it's the hope that you cling on to, but that in no way, shape, or form means that's going to lead to the reality actually happening. Like, objectively, take a step back, chill out just a tad, and remove some emotions, and think about this logically. Why the hell would Deshaun Watson want to come to a situation where they don't know what the fuck to do with quarterbacks, even if they find one, but they can't find one to begin with? Why in the hell would he want to come to an organization that should have drafted him 4 years ago and passed on him then? Why would he want to come to an organization where, in order to acquire him, a team that is not just a quarterback away, and fans need to stop buying into this bullshit. The Bears are not just one quarterback away, no matter how good or great that quarterback is. There are other issues there. You know it. Why in the hell would he want to come to a team that would have to give up a significant amount of draft pick capital and potentially players too in order to make this deal happen for a team that's already been without its first round pick the last 2 years? That's a high cost, a significant cost. And you're talking about a situation where for a team that's already got a sketchy draft history, especially with the premium picks, and hasn't had a couple of years of those premium picks, potentially having to go several years more without those premium picks, making it incredibly challenging to build and retool and remold the team in Watson's image. Why would he choose to come into this situation? Why would he choose to come into a situation where you have ownership that clearly doesn't give a shit about championships? Why would he come into a situation where both the general manager and head coach are lame ducks? There's no guarantee that they're back past 2021. Why in the bluest of blue fucks would he want to subject himself to another Texans type of situation? Furthermore, when you look at the Bears, you have some constraints in terms of the cap in this offseason, and they won't exactly be overflowing with cap space the next couple of years. So why would he come into a situation, again, similar to Houston, where you have questions about the leadership of the organization, limited draft pick capital, and they're in a bit of salary cap purgatory to hell? That makes no damn sense whatsoever. At least when you look at opportunities like the Jets and the Dolphins, and you have some Bears fans will say, oh, why would he go there? He could come to Chicago. Unpack your dumb mediocrity of McCaskey Way BS for 1 second and ask yourself, the hell is the difference between those organizations? Why in the hell would Chicago and the Chicago Bears be any more prestigious or any more of a favorable, appealing option than the Jets or the Dolphins? Why? Tell me! That's where your dumb Mark, I've bought into Bears football propaganda BS shows through. The Bears, I think, have been to the playoffs as many times as the Jets in the past 20 seasons. So when you base it off a recent relevant history, what the fuck are you even talking about, man? Meanwhile, the Jets have stability in terms of both their head coach and general manager. They have hired a new head coach that players swear by. They're in a situation in an even bigger media market, the biggest media market in the country, Madison Avenue right there. Certainly has got to be appealing for Deshaun Watson. Similar to the Bears, an organization that's won a very long time without winning another Super Bowl. But you're also talking about a team that he comes into that has a ton of cap space, has great draft pick capital. Even if they had to give up a lot to trade for Deshaun Watson, they would still have sizable, great draft capital. And also, by the way, he would be going to a division, yeah, he'd have to contend with a Josh Allen. But he wouldn't have to contend with an Aaron freaking Rodgers potentially for the next few years. Like, fundamentally, Bears fans are going to look at it and say, well, 8-8 is better than 2-14. It depends on your perspective. The Bears' defense is heading in the wrong direction. There are going to be other decisions that have to be made from a financial standpoint. And even if the Bears were to sit there and, let's say, bringing in Deshaun Watson, they somehow pulled this coup off. Like, what does that mean for an Allen Robinson? He's not going to take a big hometown discount. It's not a hometown discount, and he certainly as hell is going to want to get every dollar that he can, and who could blame him? He should. Get that money, son, while you can. Right? That's the name of the game. Get paid. So even if you did some financial wrangling and you restructured contracts like Kyle Fuller's and Khalil Mack's, and even if you sit there and you then trade or cut an Akeem Hicks and you make some other moves and you wait to make a deal with Roquan Smith on a long-term extension, you start to look at it and you realize, oh, holy crap. Like, there are potentially going to be some big trade-offs in terms of the roster construction. And long-term, that's what needs to happen, because this needs to stop being a franchise that always defaults to goddamn defense and running game as the way forward. That shit don't work anymore. But Deshaun Watson could potentially be coming into a situation where it would take a couple of years to really refine and retool that team around him. And even then, you have no guarantee of anything. Why the hell would he want to come to Chicago? Why the hell would he want to play for the Bears? Same thing with the Dolphins. The Dolphins, they've got a quality head coach, it appears, in Brian Flores. That's a team that won 10 games last year, bouncing back and forth between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua. If I'm frickin' Deshaun Watson, why do I want to go to a cold-ass, heavily taxed city like Chicago when I can go to warm weather fucking South Beach and live in a much better tax environment in Florida? You've got to help this one make sense to me. All the while, the Dolphins still have much better draft pick capital than the Bears, and especially if they wanted to make a trade, they would still have better draft pick capital. They have some cap space. They're an exciting team, better stability at head coach and general manager. They're just a better team. Like, why in the fuck would he choose the Chicago Bears over the Miami Dolphins? Other than you just wanting it to happen, other than you not wanting to cry about the thought of Deshaun Watson being there available for the second time and now getting the chance to get him, you have no good answer. You have no good justification. You have no reason. You don't. Like, even Carolina's potentially more appealing. They've got long-term stability at head coach. They've got some cap space. They're desperate, sure. I wouldn't say as much as the Bears, but at least an organization that has shown some ability to know what to do with a big-time quarterback. And again, you play in a smaller market, less pressure. Like, even Carolina has more appeal. I'm sorry, it does. Like, and it would be the most Bears football thing, mediocrity of the McCaskey way thing to do, to go, oh, yuck. Already spent the second overall pick on Trubisky in that 2017 draft and gave up other picks that eventually became guys like Fred Warner and fucking Alvin Kamara. Now you're talking about potentially having to invest 2 to 3 more additional first-round picks along with other picks to go back and get the quarterback you should have fucking taken in the first place in 2017. I realize it's a unique situation, and quarterbacks like this that aren't even technically in the peak of their career coming on the market don't happen very often. But Bears fans, you went through this crap before. I realize he's not the same level of quarterback, but we did this song and dance before with Cutler, and how'd that work out? So stop it. Look forward, not look back. And this thing about, well, he might like Nagy. Like, why in the hell would he? He's got to know Nagy's a numbskull. Why in the fuck would he have confidence that Ryan Pace could build a championship team around him? For all you Bears fans that think that he would choose to come here, maybe he will, or maybe the Texans would refuse to trade him to anybody in the AFC and force him to go to the NFC, and at that point in time, maybe the Bears become more appealing. But in terms of like actually choosing and setting out to say, this is my number one option, I can't imagine Deshaun Watson thinking that. And if he did, frankly, I would question his judgment and his freaking sanity. Like, what the hell are you paying attention to that you would make the Bears the choice of the place you want to go? The only way this works in a way that doesn't totally screw up the Bears organization in the long term is that Deshaun Watson says the only team I want to go to is Chicago. Houston eventually gets so fed up and gets backed into a quarter where they've lost leverage and they have no choice. And the Bears only have to trade away a pittance in terms of draft pick capital compared to what everybody's envisioning. But the realistic thing here is I can't envision Deshaun Watson limiting his options to one team. It's kind of dumb. Why would he have leverage? And frankly, I don't even know why the Houston Texans at this moment would want to trade him. Why they feel pressured to trade him. You clearly don't give a shit about PR. You traded away DeAndre Hopkins for a bag of donuts. You let Bill O'Brien run you into the ground. Your previous owner was a clown. Like, you don't care about PR, so what the hell difference does it make? What's Deshaun Watson going to do? He's going to sit out the season? Lose all that money? Was it $40 million or something this year? He's going to forfeit all that money? He's going to forfeit a year of service towards his free agency clock? Yeah, I don't think so. Even if he wants to sit out some games, he'd eventually play. The reality is here for the Houston Texans is Deshaun Watson has zero leverage. Zero. If Deshaun Watson is able to force his way out of Houston, that speaks to the sheer incompetence of the Houston Texans organization. Because at this time, he is under contract for a big deal for several years. He should have zero leverage. I'd play chicken with him. Say, you're going to sit out? All right, sit out. We'll fine your ass, and then you're not going to get paid. And how stupid are you going to feel? But again, I just can't get over the fact of, I can't imagine thinking, if I'm Deshaun Watson, that I would want to come to Chicago. These other opportunities have more infrastructure in place and more resources in place to build a better team around me in the short and long term than the Chicago Bears do. Like, if this defense was playing elite and this offense clearly had a bunch of weapons and they were just getting turd burglar play from Trubisky and Foles in 2020, it's a different conversation. It's go all in, do whatever the F it takes, go get the guy. And you could maybe still swoon me a little bit with the thought of, you go get a Deshaun Watson and everything else you figure out later. But there are costs. There are significant costs to doing this. And it does no good to trade for the quarterback if you're in a position for several years that you can't effectively build around him. It does you no good to bring in this level of elite type of quarterback in the league and put him into a mediocre situation with a crappy offensive mind and play caller and a mediocre to bad general manager. And let's not even get on the higher level of the organization, the team president and the ownership. I can't possibly wrap my head around why Deshaun Watson would want to come to Chicago. And if he did, I think he's insane. I also wonder at what point in time do Bears fans think to themselves, hey, why can't we just go find our own quarterback in the draft? And, or maybe if they wouldn't have won meaningless games this year like they fucking did, so they could backdoor into the 7th seed of the playoffs and still get stomped by the Saints in the wild card round, maybe you wouldn't have to worry about this conversation because you're going to draft and develop your own goddamn guy. Never say never. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, a week, a month, 3 months from now? Who knows? But you got to tell me, Bears fans, and get that mindset about your fandom and you just want them so bad. Get that crap out, because that's irrelevant. Your emotion does not matter here. Stick to facts and logic. Why, from a facts and logic standpoint, would Deshaun Watson choose, of all teams to come to, the Chicago Bears?